My name is Dr. Malie Coyne, and I'm a clinical psychologist, an author of the book Love In, Love Out, A Compassionate Approach to Parenting Your Anxious Child, and also an adjunct lecturer with the University of Galway. I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking to you today about a compassionate approach to nurturing a healthy body image for parents. And this is a talk that I'm giving for Galway Public Libraries as part of their Healthy Ireland at Your Library series. So I'm delighted to do this for Galway Libraries. Being from Galway, or living in Galway myself, I'm very, attached to Galway Library and to the amazing work that they do. So it's great to be here and to do this. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about relates as well, body-wise, who are the National Eating Disorder Organisation, have really helped me out with this presentation as well. So I'd like to just give them a shout out because they've always been very helpful and they're an amazing organisation. So what am I talking about? Well, firstly, I'm very grateful to be here, and that's the cover of my book. I think this subject is really close to my heart. I have done a talk previously on eating disorders. And this one relates more to body image as such, but we'll touch on eating disorders as well, but body image is what we will focus on, and it's a talk directed for parents, but there's a lot of good advice in there for young people as well. So we're going to talk about body image in Ireland and body-wise. I have some body-wise slides for that as well. What factors influence body image? What is compassionate parenting and how will it help? For me, I suppose in writing my book, I spoke a lot about what compassionate parenting is, and I think it's an approach that can really help parents with young people that are kind of having difficulty with their body image. What can young people do to nurture a healthy body image, and what can parents do to nurture healthy body image in their young people, but actually also in themselves, because very much, there is a relationship between how a parent feels about themselves and how a young person might feel about themselves, and the kind of messages that the young person gets in the home about body image. So this is a quote: "Seeing my kids happy is one of the best feelings in the world." And absolutely, like as parents, I'm a parent myself. I have a 9 and 11-year-old, and we really, all we want to do is see our kids happy and make sure that they thrive. So therefore, having a conversation about the likes of eating disorders or body image or seeing our children suffer in any way really brings stuff up for us as parents. And I think that's a very important thing to note to start with. And also to give, I suppose, a trigger warning in that there are some topics perhaps that we might talk about during this presentation which might be sensitive to you. So what I would say is, if they are, and if you feel like, I need a bit of further support with that, I would certainly go and seek further support for yourself, or talk to a friend or somebody that you trust or a professional about the difficulties you might be having. So what is body image? You can see there with that picture that we have so many different bodies, don't we, in the world? We're like, everybody's shape is different. So what body image is, it's the mental representation of an individual creates of themselves, but it may or may not bear any relation to how one actually appears. So it's the image in your head, the mental representation, but it doesn't necessarily link with the reality. And that's what psychologists find when we're working with people with, issues with their body image. Body image is subject to all kinds of distortions, from the attitudes of one's parents, early experiences, internal factors like how you feel, your emotions, and external factors like social media. So there's a lot that impacts on body image. Thoughts and opinions about one's body can start forming as early as 3 years old. Often this is a direct result of a parent's relationship with their own bodies. How a parent sees herself or himself is influential and can mold a child's ideas about their body. And really, I should have written himself as well, because it's not just moms. Obviously, it can be any parent or any person in your child's life or young person's life that has a significant impact on them. So even if it was like an auntie or an uncle or a granny or grandfather, whatever, and if they were getting particular messages about body image, about what's right and what's not right. I mean, again, that could be, you think of maybe the older generation, how they might think about body image, and, making open comments about whether you've lost weight, gained weight, commenting on how you look. I mean, these things can really impact on a young person's body image, because they're very susceptible at that age. So signs of poor body image would be excessive attention on minor flaws in appearance, where a young person might, and this could be for yourself too, by the way. So if you view yourself or the young person as unattractive, even ugly, fears other people can see the so-called deformity, the particular flaw. It's basically like, somebody takes a photo of you and you go straight for the perceived flaw, to see how that looks, to see whether, is this okay or is this not okay? We all do it, by the way. We all do it. Well, I think a lot of us do, in terms of looking at photos. Maybe that's just more, I certainly have struggled with this and still struggle. If somebody might be a perfectionist, the perfectionism is very much associated as well with eating disorders. Avoid social engagements. This is where body image gets to kind of a more detrimental level, where you're actually starting to avoid situations. Constantly grooms and looks at oneself in the mirror, which teenagers can do that anyway, but if there's very much an increase in that, or it's happening a lot. Constantly hides perceived flaw with makeup or clothes. I've even seen people covering, or posing in a particular way not to show a certain part of their body, or covering, or whatever it is. Constantly compares one's appearance with other people's. Now, teenagers and young people are very prone to social comparison anyway, as are all human beings, but particularly young people. So if you have poor body image, you're placing more weight on how you think other people look. And in the days of Instagram and TikTok, that can be really difficult. Pursues excessive cosmetic procedures or surgery. Needs reassurance from others. Do I look fat in this? Is never satisfied with their appearance. So what about, so body-wise, the Eating Disorders Association of Ireland, they are a brilliant association that provide a lot of help to people who have issues with with eating disorders, and also they have a section on their website that deals specifically with body image, and they also have training for young people that deals with body image. And I'm taking, if they have kindly provided me with some of their slides for me to be able to share with you in terms of what's going on with body image in Ireland. So in 2022, there was a survey of 500 girls aged 12 to 19 where 61% claimed that because of social media, they struggled with low body image. So this was the Shauna Project, which is a brilliant project in Ireland for girls and women. In 2019, the My World survey found that body esteem was found to be one of 9 key factors which related to youth mental health outcomes. The study also found a significant relationship between time spent online, more than 3 hours, and higher levels of depression and anxiety and lower levels of body esteem. Now, people have been constantly asking me, is there a direct relationship between time online and levels of depression, or, issues with your body image and that kind of thing, or even eating disorders? And what I would say there, I had an interesting conversation with Emer Higgins, TD, about this, about kind of photoshopping on apps. It's on my Instagram, and if you Google it, we did it for a Lust for Life Eating Disorders Awareness Week last year. And really, I talked about the complexity of an eating disorder and body image issues. So it's not as simple as a young person sees something online and that causes them to become depressed or, have low self-esteem. There's a complexity of issues there, but definitely if somebody with low self-esteem is more likely to look online for longer and compare themselves to others, then that could lead them to be more low and depressed about how they look, or have a less good body image. So there are many other factors that lead to eating disorders and that lead to low body image, but social media is one of those that more and more research is being done into, and we need to really take stock of that for our young people in terms of the images that they're viewing online and how the characteristics of the people online that they're looking at are not actually possessed by real human beings with all these photo altering apps. And it's just you're comparing your real self with a photoshopped self, which to a young brain it can be quite detrimental. And I think that's really important to look at. So what's wrecking your head? There was a survey of 2,500 young people aged 13 to 19 that found that 72% identified body image concerns as causing them difficulty in their lives. So this is really impacting on people. Body dissatisfaction is linked to depression, anxiety, eating disorders, alcohol and substance misuse, self-harm and suicide. So it really does impact. It's not just like, oh, you know, they're a little bit feeling low about how they look on any particular day. It can really impact on you in a very big way and, you know, can be hard to talk about and share. Bodywise also found that men, the research indicated an increase in eating disorders and concerns about body image in men. And Bodywise, there's a Bodywise support group, and out of those attendees, 29% are male. For women, research indicates that women tend to have poor body image across the lifespan. These are a number of studies that have been done, so it's very much an issue that can impact on women. Children, there's an increase in the number of preteen children in Ireland developing eating disorders, with rates as much as doubled in the last 10 years. And in terms of COVID-19, there was a surge in body image issues and eating disorders in all ages during the lockdowns. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. So just in terms, this is an article that I contributed to for this anonymous mother who wrote it, and it was in the Irish Times, called "During Lockdown, My 11-year-old was hospitalised with an eating disorder." I would really recommend that you read that. It's a brilliant article about why there was a surge in eating disorders during the pandemic and how that has continued. And then I contributed to another one, "Has your child developed a lockdown eating disorder? More and more young people are presenting with complex disorders such as anorexia, bulimia and binge eating. The experts explain how to spot the signs and what parents can do to support their child's recovery." I suppose I'm just kind of, there's many things that impacted on that. I'll go to the next slide. I suppose Bodywise found that there was an increase in their users of online support groups, an increase in the use of their helpline, an increase in email support, and an increase in their Pillar program, which is for family members. And I suppose the main things were like there was, you know, when you're in the lockdown, there was less supports, you know, kids weren't, or young people weren't going to school. They were more mindful of what they were eating. There was a big focus on baking and eating. And so for people who might have, might have been thinking a little bit about losing weight, then it became a bigger problem for some when they felt this lack of control, where they were at home a lot of the time, and then maybe exercise turned into over-exercise. People were posting loads of stuff on social media. That group, there was kids were online more, young people were online more. We were all online more. In fact, probably all of us are still online a lot, but you know, there was a lot of, you know, I suppose when you have an eating disorder, it can be to do with a lack of feeling of control and a lot of family dynamic issues. And all of those would have been, I suppose, you know, the lockdowns were a melting pot for all of that. But we already had big difficulties in eating disorders in Ireland. So as I said, heightened threat and stress during the lockdowns, loss of structure, focus on healthy eating and exercise. Healthy eating became restricted eating, exercise became over-exercise, underlying anxiety, struggle to regulate emotions, which can then be regulated maybe through controlling food and over-exercise, isolation, lack of usual supports, parents more likely to notice problematic behaviours, perhaps that's explained for an increase in rates, and the function of the body image issues and eating disorder. You know, sometimes they can be seen as, you know, like a cry for help or needing, in need of attention as such in a family where there's a lot of issues going on. Sometimes I have found that a child might remain symptomatic almost as a way to keep the parents together. I've certainly seen that when I've worked in CAMS. So there's a complexity of reasons, and so therefore you can't be very simple. As a psychologist, you have to look at the complexity of reasons why somebody might have issues with body image, which can then veer into eating disorders. So this is the spectrum of eating behavior, which is important to look at. So you've got on all the way at that side, you've got the eating disorder, which is the diagnosed anorexia, bulimia, or binge eating. Then you've got what's described as disordered eating, where you restrict your intake, you're unresponsive to your hunger or fullness cues, eating to regulate emotions, compulsive eating, negative body image, limited food intake, all or nothing approach to healthful eating, firm dietary rules, active to burn calories dieting culture. And then this is what we're looking for. We're what we want to do is, like, when our child or a young person is in the disordered eating category, we have to kind of be mindful that they don't go down the road of eating disorder. And I would say that disordered eating would be very much related to body image issues, where you're obviously restricting intake. I suppose the negative body image is mentioned, where you're changing your behavior because of the way you feel about your body. And then you're looking for intuitive eating. This is what we're trying to help even like younger children to start kind of thinking of: eating when hungry, viewing eating as pleasurable, eating intentionally and with purpose, stop eating when satisfied, positive body image. I don't really like the word positive. I'm going to say healthy body image, because I don't like healthy or positive versus negative. I like looking at body image and eating disorders and eating as we're promoting health and gut instinct with, pardon the pun, the gut, but it's about kind of when, for me, it's about like, okay, I'm not going to say don't go to the likes of McDonald's, right, to my kids, but do you feel good after eating that kind of a dinner or food versus eating something healthy? You don't. So it's like trying to figure out what makes your body feel good, and what makes your body not feel good. We feel good after going for a walk. We mightn't feel good after sitting in the house all day and not moving. So it's about figuring out how do I feel? So we're talking about including a variety of healthy foods, allowing for indulgences because they're fine, does not regulate emotions through food, active for health and enjoyment. By the way, as a parent, if you find yourself in the category of disordered eating, that could impact, well, that's certainly impacting on you, but it could impact on your children. And like, I suppose since having an eating disorder as a young person, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute, like, I'm very conscious about how, like, if I ever have in my head, okay, Malie, you need to kind of get healthy a bit again, start going to the gym a bit more, start, kind of just minding not eating too much crap or whatever. I'm not going to say that to my children. I'm just going to say, oh, well, mommy's going to the gym tonight, makes mommy feel good. That's it. I don't mention weight in front of my kids. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but what I'm saying, well, I do think the way, if they constantly see a parent trying to lose weight, going on the next diet, and there's a big focus on food and like big focus on losing weight or being overweight or calling somebody else fat or whatever it is, or like seeing like a bigger body shape as not a good body shape, it can impact on your children. A lot of this stuff starts with yourself, I believe, but I'm not saying that as a blaming thing. A lot of parents can have difficulties with disordered eating, but to consider that, if you want to know how will I help my child with their body image, perhaps starting with yourself might be somewhere to begin with, if that's a difficulty for you, and that there can be many reasons why adults would have poor body image. So what influences body image? For young people, media, and for all of us, media ideals, time spent online, social media, people around us, and who we compare ourselves with. And I would also say that for young people, there is a perfect storm where all of us have a tricky brain which attunes much more to negativity. So in other words, you're much more likely to see your flaws than you are the good things about yourself. When I ask a young person, they might comment on what they don't like about themselves. When I ask them, what do you like about yourself, they find it much harder to do that. And that's because our brain is focused on negativity in order to keep us safe. That's just the way our brains are as human beings. So that's the negativity bias. And then we also have social comparison, where we compare ourselves generally in an unfavorable way compared to other people. And for young people, all of that can be very, very big during their younger years, and because their rational brain is still forming under construction. Whereas for an adult, you might be able to think, okay, I'm seeing myself really negatively here, I need to cop on to myself. Do you know that kind of cop on, rationalize? For a young person who's really kind of in the depths of emotion, and there's a lot going on for them, it can be really hard for them to see the more sensible, because their brain is still under construction. So many young people are going through an identity crisis, like, who am I right now, and who am I in the world? I'm separating from my parents, so who am I as a person? And that can create a lot of conflict and difficulty. It can be really, if you remember back to when you were trying to figure out who you were, that was so hard. And then adolescent brains are sensitive to stressors. So adolescents need a supportive environment to develop their social identity and connect to their peers. Their change in hormone levels affects the development of their brain circuitry, and it's important to just be aware of that. Stress can feel more stressful to teenagers. The teen brain is a work in progress. It's guided by the emotional amygdala, which are at the back of your ears, your fight or flight. So stress increases the activation in this immature prefrontal cortex, which is your rational brain, which is immature. So when they're stressed out, it increases activation, and this interferes with their ability to pay attention and to make decisions. So they're more likely to engage in risk-taking, gut reactions, anger outbursts, hyper-awareness of their peers. That's what teenagers are like, and it's really hard for them. So therefore, these body image issues can seem massive and can feel very, very real, and are very real for them. So my own story, I guess the reason that I am so interested in this topic is that I suffered with anorexia when I was about 14. We had just moved, my dad is a diplomat, we had just moved from Los Angeles to Milan in Italy, and I was just really unhappy, and a friend of mine went on a diet, and I was, probably on the kind of, I could lose a little bit of weight, and I started then going on a diet and exercising. And then for me, because I'm a perfectionist, and also because I was unhappy where I was, I felt a real lack of control over my environment. I didn't really feel like I had many friends, probably like family issues as well, which I won't go into. And it was really hard. So, and also eating disorders run in my family. I won't go into detail with that either, but that can happen. So I had the mix of the genetic causes and also the environmental causes, and for I don't know, the guts of a year, I was really losing weight loads. I lost my period for a good bit of time, which eventually, my sister kind of expressed concern, and I snapped out of it, and I was really lucky that I didn't need hospital treatment, or that it didn't go to the point of really, really being unwell. But at the same time, I have seen people, close to me that are really unwell, and it really impacted on me. And I still struggle with body image issues, and I can be very critical of myself. And so I kind of just know what it feels like to feel unhappy about how my body looks. And I have 2 daughters, and I'm really wanting them to have a healthy body image. And also I'm showing them Instagram accounts where it's not just skinny girls, with that kind of ideal, that there's people, with promoting more real bodies on social media as well. And just kind of really looking at healthy bodies as opposed to losing weight all the time. So yeah, that was a difficult time in my life, I would say. And I was on the Elaine show, so you can find that link on my website or just Google it. Or else I spoke to Katrina McMahon, this really good friend of mine, about my own battle with anorexia. And I kind of said it was like a military regime where my mind was a dictator. Really hard. So These are teenagers. I can't keep calm, mum and dad, or whoever's in my life as an adult. I need you now more than ever. We might think as teenagers, because they tell us to go away and, you know, they're really quiet and they're not talking, that they don't need us, or that they're self-sufficient. But actually, it's really important during this time of their lives to still be there for them. But it's just about being there for them, perhaps in a different way. Maybe not like the way you used to, but kind of like letting them know that you're there. And also, you know, encouraging them to have chats with you, maybe not face to face, side to side, short little chats as you're engaged doing something, kind of letting them know what you've noticed if you're concerned about them. You know, kind of keeping that good quality relationship going, being interested in the stuff that they're looking at. You know, they mightn't want to show you necessarily, but just even what social media accounts are they looking at, and what, you know, how do they, you know, without maybe, I mean, you can ask the question directly, but just like, you know, what are the people into, you know, in your school? What kinds of things are they talking about? Like just the little signs about, like, if they start wearing certain types of clothes, whether, you know, using opportunities to have chats with them and to kind of gauge where they're at with their feelings about their bodies. And you'll probably figure that out by maybe what they eat and their exercise intake, but just getting a general sense of their mood. It's not just about body image, it's about really like figuring out how they're feeling within themselves generally, and body image is only a part of that. So what is compassionate parenting? So I talk a lot in my book about the connection between the child or the young person that's focused on the value of emotion. Emotions, there's no bad or good emotion. Emotions give us signs about how our children are. So it's about slowing right down and trying to see what lies behind our young person's feelings and behavior. That if we treat ourselves with compassion, it enables us to do the same for our children so they can feel safe and calm, lower stress, anxiety, and low mood while improving self-worth and resilience. I'm all about the idea of compassionate parenting, and I talk a lot about it in my book. I also talk about this safe chain of resilience, where I have like this step-by-step approach for managing anxiety, and like body image issues cause anxiety. So do like eating disorders, or kind of like an extension of anxiety. So I kind of talk about it in terms of how the brain processes information, and how self-care would be one of the first steps for a parent in order to broach or deal with any issue, and to look at how you as a parent look after yourself and regulate your own emotions, or else how you feel about your own body, or how do you feel about having the conversation with your young person, how do you feel in relation to them, where are you at, what triggers do you have, and that can be really helpful. Anchoring is how you can help your child feel safe and secure in a moment. Feeling felt is how you can help your child or young person feel connected and understood. And finally, empowerment is how you can empower your child or young person to manage their anxiety or any other big emotion. So self-care is a huge one. And I have a lotus of self-care in my book that I talk about: physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and social self-care. And basically, like, if mom and dad have no kind of self-care kind of in their battery, and the baby has loads, how are the parents going to look after their child? And similarly, when your child is a teenager. So you can't pour from an empty cup, and you need to take care of yourself. And I'll talk a bit more about that. So self-care is important because you are your best resource. Caring for others takes up a lot of energy and a lot of patience. Neglect of self-care leads to feeling irritable, overwhelmed, sad, anxious, stressed, weaker immune system, high blood pressure, a louder critical inner voice, which many parents can have. It's a priority and a necessity, not a luxury in what we do. Self-care means giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. The benefits is that it improves your physical health, your mood, your mental health, your self-worth. It helps to repair damage caused from past trauma. It inspires feelings of contentment and happiness, and increases productivity and promotes work-life balance. So really, looking after yourself. If you have done something for yourself, or you have spent some time, you know, like thinking about your triggers or looking after, like filling your tank. It helps you to breathe in and out in a moment of difficulty with your child or young person. Calm yourself and realize you have a choice in how you react. So if I've just had a cup of coffee and I'm just going to have a sip, and I have sat down for 10 minutes, and my 11-year-old, starts crying, getting upset about something, right? I am going to be so much better able to be calm and there for her needs if I've just looked after my needs, rather than running around and not looking after my needs at all, and that's why I talk about self-care being so important. The impact of looking after yourself and self-compassion is huge, and it's not just the impact on yourself but the impact on everybody around you. So if your child sees you showing yourself care, i.e. mommy sometimes goes for a walk, or daddy does whatever, watches or whatever it is, because they're looking after yourself, it gives your child the model, the kind of that they need to do that for themselves as well, and that they're worth it. You're worth it. Giving and so therefore that gives them the message that they're worth it. Their needs are valid too. True self-care is not salt baths and chocolate cake. It is making the choice to build a life you don't need to regularly escape from. So recognizing when we need self-care, things like when we have physical signs, mental signs, you can read them there, any emotional signs, social signs. I love this one. That's when you need self-care, in a moment of, oh my God, I can't deal with this. Well, then you need to take a little break if you can. And I'm talking about, look, you could have your kids there, nobody else there to kind of look after them in that moment of, it can mean leaving the room and just breathing for a while. It can mean, guys, you can just go and watch telly for a few minutes and I just need some time to chillax. Or it's about just like checking in. That's why I called my book Love In, Love Out. I pour love in this moment so I can pour love out. But I need to be aware that I'm really rising to my fight or flight mode. So how do I have a choice in how I react in this moment? I can only have a choice if I breathe in and out and give myself some compassion and love in this SHIT hard parenting moment. I'm not going to curse. Self-care is not just another chore. Please don't underestimate the impact of using a kind and gentle tone of voice when relating to yourself. If you don't use warmth in your relationship with yourself, self-care activities become just another chore, something that has to be done as opposed to an act of love. That's from the lovely Roisin Joyce, from a psychologist from Galway who has a brilliant practice that I can't think of the name of off the top of my head right now. So just Google her. I have a lovely exercise from my book called the Lotus of Self-Care exercise that you can kind of try to figure out what aspects of self-care you're already engaging in and what you could do more for your self-care, what needs to happen to help you with that. And if you'd like me to send that to you, you can email me on my website and I can get back in touch with you and send that to you. So I looked at how you nourish your body, heart, mind, spirit, and social self on a regular basis, what realistic intention you can set, and what do you need to make this happen. So another way of looking at well-being is that every day to be well, and I'm talking about young people, parents, all human beings, we need to do something every day which brings us a sense of pleasure, something which brings us a sense of achievement, and something which brings us a sense of closeness and connection with other people. So compassionate self-care for parents, where we're balancing those things, we're making time for daily self-care. We have good sleep, work-life balance. We're a steward of our senses. We stop looking at social media or the news or whatever's making us feel not good. We find ways to cope with stress. We focus on what we can control. We ask ourselves, what do I need right now in this hard moment? We dedicate me time, and we have a support network. So the anchoring part of the safe chain of resilience is when children meet us with difficult emotions, when their storm meets our calm, co-regulation occurs. I love this graphic. When your teenager is going through a stormy moment and they meet your calm approach, which I would argue will be calmer if you have just filled your cup or you are regularly filling your cup, you can co-regulate. You can understand that in this moment they're having this reaction, but it's to do with their teenage brain. It's not necessarily something against you. You know, what they need from you is a calm, empathic parent who says, okay, that's fine, you need some time to calm for a few minutes, but I will come and ask you how you're doing, or I will keep that in mind and have that conversation with you, because my role is to not join your chaos but to co-regulate, even when you're a teenager, especially when you're a teenager. So Viktor Frankl talks about he's a Holocaust survivor, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And I talk a lot in my book about the value of working on yourself. And I really believe that in this crucial space between a teenager or young person having big, deep emotions and how we respond to them, in that space, if there is self-care, if we have given ourselves the time to reflect, we are better able to produce a calmer response than if we weren't. And then we also have this idea of shark music, which comes from Circle of Security Parenting, which looks at the fact that many parents have certain triggers that are that come from our own childhoods and the way our emotions were met when we were children, and maybe the way our grandparents' emotions were met by their own parents, and like transgenerational issues. So the shark music is all about this idea of like, it's almost like there's sharks all around you when you have a particular trigger, and if your child or teenager triggers that in you, you might have more of a response. So really self-awareness. I think it's really important if we have many issues as parents, and I talk about it a good bit in my book. It's important for us to kind of do the work on ourselves and to figure out where are my triggers coming from, and maybe to seek the help. Go to your GP, seek the help of a health professional. That can be really helpful. I know I had loads of skeletons in my closet before I became a parent, and many more that were unearthed when I became a parent, and many more to come, I would argue. So I would say the value of working on yourself, you're doing it for yourself, but you're really also doing it for your children. So we're in our anchoring strategy, we're creating safety to mirror calm. We're finding out what is happening inside our nervous systems in any difficult moment. What tone of voice am I using? What is my body language communicating? Do I feel safe right now? What do I need right now to feel safe? Do I need to take a deep breath, take 5, or call someone to help me? So that's really important. It's about checking ourselves in a difficult moment. So what do I need right now? Before you act, this is so important. This is an acronym from the addiction literature. It's so important for you, but also for your young person. Before you act, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And if you are any of those, take a self-care break. I would also say, ask yourself if your young person has, is really, like upset over something. Are they hungry? Are they angry? Are they lonely? Are they tired? Worse yet, if they're hangry, or if you're hangry, because that's anger from the pit of your stomach. It's happened to all of us. It's these are just, I kind of think as psychologists sometimes we look for the complicated reasons for the emotion, but really we need to cover the basic needs that we all have as human beings, and that's important to look at. Another thing I think for us to look at with young people is balancing their screen time and taking a break from text, post, games, shows. Things are more important off screen. Put your devices down. So this is not just, by the way, it's like, I think we need to be digital role models for our young people, and it's like we can't just say to them, oh, put your phone away and be staring at your phone the entire time. We need to do that. And when we're looking at online concerns, we're looking at the contact they have, the content of what they're posting and they're looking at, and how they behave online as well. This is so important. There's a correlation between sleep and mental health, which was a study done in Galway about the percentage of students reporting good or very good mental health was directly correlated to the amount of sleep that they were getting. And so in other words, if somebody had 9 hours sleep or more, this is like, I think, for 12 to 13 year olds, if they had 9 hours of sleep or more, 67% of them were going to have good or very good mental health, and that decreased with how much hours of sleep they were getting. So even though your teen might say to you, I know that my 11-year-old, my tween last night was annoyed when I said turn off the light at 9 o'clock, and she wanted a bit of extra time compared to her 9-year-old sister. But I know she's making up sleep because she was in 23 panto shows up to last week. So in other words, shout out to the Town Hall Theatre and Renmore Panto, but she needs to make up her sleep. So as a parent, I am still her parent, and I still needed to say to her, no, Jess, you still need to switch off the light and get this sleep because you're making up for the sleep. And I know she went straight to sleep, and it was hard to wake her up at 7 this morning, which proves that she needed the sleep. So we still need to monitor our young people's sleep levels because it does impact on their mental health, and it impacts on our mental health too. So feeling felt, the capacity for self-soothing is born out of hundreds and hundreds of instances of being soothed by someone else. So how do we help our child to feel felt? I guess a lot of that can come from how we were soothed as young people and children, but we really want them to feel soothed by how we respond to them. We all just want to be seen and heard, no exception. So it's important to validate where your child is at and try. So if your child or young person comes to you with a feeling, if they said, Mommy, I'm really upset about such and such in school today, rather than try to rationalize and say, but why would you be upset about that? You weren't upset before. I'm sure she's a nice girl, blah, blah, blah. Tell me a bit more about that. Oh, that sounds like that's really hard. So Dan Siegel would talk about, this is a neuropsychiatrist, would talk about, you meet a feeling with a feeling. Mommy, I feel like this, or Daddy, I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me a bit more about that. Parents can be afraid to meet a feeling with a feeling because they want their child to feel better. But I promise you will only get your child to get through this tunnel of emotion if you meet them with the feeling. And it's when you meet them with the feeling, it's only after that you can rationalize, I wonder what you could do about that tomorrow. But you need to validate where they're at. It is so important. We miss this step as parents because we want our children to feel better. But it's not our job to take them out of their feeling. It's our job to journey with them through it, okay? Right. Unpacking a worry. Mom, I'm really worried about school tomorrow. Okay, tell me a bit more about that worry. Which part of school are you worried about? You're trying to unpack what it is. Empowerment. I am beautiful inside and out. So this is the final step of the way I kind of would look at compassionate parenting and looking at emotions. So, body-wise, have, just to say, in terms of useful steps, they have a brilliant page about body image on their website. I cannot recommend Bodywise enough. And they talk about reducing negative influences of media ideals. So make a conscious choice to reject media ideals of beauty. Start to question media messaging which suggests ideals are desirable and achievable. Remind yourself of techniques used to create media images. Become critical of media motives, marketing and product placement. Lessen your exposure to media ideals. I love the way they show these pictures of Beyonce before and after photoshopping and this gentleman over here. Look at that. Look, I mean, the differences. These are things that we can discuss these things with our young people. Look at what the images they're looking at and say, does that look real or does that not look real? Sometimes it's photo editing and photoshopping, but sometimes it's actually lighting. So I think, and then becoming critical of the media motives. What do the media want us to see as the ideal body? Have a look at that page with your young person. Have a look at what they look at on Instagram, on TikTok, and really question that with them. Because we need that, and look at the healthy body image, the promoting kind of the other types of bodies online, and get them to look at that as well. It's really important. There's some brilliant sites out there that would promote that. Reduce negative influence of social media. Become critical consumers of social media. People tend to post their best selves. Important to know that. It's true. and that likes, disconnecting, like, and looking at likes all the time won't necessarily be helpful. So Bodywise would recommend looking at webwise.ie/news/ the full picture. So mindful social media use. Make your time online purposeful. Avoid mindless scrolling. I would say that to young people, but also to adults. And so sometimes putting a time limit on an app can be useful for yourself or your young person. Tune into mood and body when online. Important. How do you feel after you look at that? Turn off your notifications. Be influencer savvy and reduce exposures to fake content. Take social media breaks. Like, really important to do that for ourselves and for them to do that too. Maybe talk to them about how they feel after they look online. What is helping them and what is not helping them. Fine to do a task like I want to post a TikTok video, but I'm going to be engaged in this task and then I'm going to put the phone down rather than be looking to see how many likes. Because every time they get a like, it's like, ooh, I'm good enough. Ooh, I'm good enough. Ooh, I'm good enough. And it's like, there are ways of restricting that use. So start to notice appearance focused posting and lessen your exposure. Do not allow likes to determine your self-worth. Consider your own social media use and your motives for posting. Consider your true likes and do a social media audit. Disconnect and develop a relationship with self. So here's a picture. Stop comparing yourself to others. Awesome. Also awesome. So, I guess we're all going to compare ourselves to others. So I don't want you to berate yourself or your child, your young person to berate themselves for comparing themselves to others. We all do it. So it's kind of like, how can I reduce the impact? Like, this inner voice is telling me that I'm fat or that I'm ugly or this other person's so much nicer than me. How can we reduce the volume of that voice and increase the volume of what I like about myself? What I like about interacting with real people, how I feel, like starting to develop their gut instinct about what makes them feel good and less good in terms of social media use. So in terms of rethinking body image, make a conscious choice to change our beliefs, which link self-worth to how we look. We need to shift our value and turn focus away from body image. Stop judging ourselves and others by their appearance, or else reduce that. Consider the qualities you admire in people. Reflect on the people you like spending time with and why. What do you like about them? Is it because they look a certain way, or is it because they have some inner values that you really like? Make a list of your own positive qualities. Appreciate your body for what it can do and not how it looks. I've done a lot of work with women who remain, or young people who remain in sports, and for them it can have a huge positive impact on them because they're not just thinking of their bodies in terms of like what they're going to post on social media. They're thinking of their bodies in terms of, my body helps me to breathe, my body helps, encourages me to drink water and eat food so I can perform the functions that my body needs for it to be able to walk and run and, be involved in what I'm doing. It is incredible how the body self-heals. It is incredible what our bodies can do for us. So, rather than like focus on the one thing or the few things you don't like about the way you think your body looks, it's like looking at what your body can do for you, and the functions of your body as well are really important. And do not engage in body talk or body comparison conversations. So what I would say is reduce your engagement in that. I mean, these slides are coming from Bodywise. I think sometimes it's hard to avoid those things. So trying to be more mindful of when these happen. Shift the value away from your appearance. Consider your influences. Be around people who love you for who you are, who make you feel good about the person you are. You will know those people. Building a supportive relationship with self. Accepting your whole self. Build a whole view of yourself. Goal setting. Prioritize well-being and happiness over appearance. Self-talk mantras. I remember, when I was 18, I was friendly with this girl who used to look at herself in the mirror and kind of have this amazing mantra, which I can't remember at this moment in time, but it was kind of like, you are amazing and blah, blah, blah. And she was looking at herself in the mirror, and I just thought, like, wow, you know, she was empowered. I must get that quote. But self-talk can be really helpful. What is your mantra? For me, it's like love in, love out when I'm in a difficult parenting moment. But what is your mantra for looking in your mirror and go, you know, even like, you got this, you know what I mean? Or, you know, just something that's positive that can really spur you on, the thing that you like about yourself inside. Connecting with your body, listening to your body, checking in with your body. So Body Wise would talk about rethinking our beliefs about body image, reducing negative influences, clearing space to consider our likes, building a whole view of self, self-talk, self-compassion, reconnecting, building a positive, supportive relationship with your body, barriers, bullying and boundaries. So as a parent, just to let you know, you have more influence than you think, and they need you more than you think as young people. If we want our children or our young people to love and accept who they are, then we must love and accept who we are, including our imperfections. And I touched on this. It's time to befriend your inner critic too. And when we talk about body image with our young people, it's the first of many conversations. We educate ourselves on body image, eating disorders, any common myths, if you feel like you need to before you have a conversation and you're maybe concerned about disordered eating patterns or body image. Thread carefully, be clear about what you're worried about if you are worried, or maybe you just want to have a general conversation about social media and what they're into. Pick a good time, side by side, be honest about your concerns, use I statements, try not to disarm their coping if they have developed certain coping strategies. Focus on their feelings, not just their body image, not just like I'm looking at what you're eating or you're exercising too much. How are you feeling? What's going? How are things? How are things? I kind of notice that you're spending a bit more time in your room. Are you okay? You know, have a general conversation. Avoid judgment and ultimatums, which can be really hard when you're a parent of a young person. I have it all ahead of me. I have a tween and a 9-year-old, but let's see. Encourage healthy body image. What messages do I give about how I see myself? How do I talk about other people? Do I refer to them as fat or as, oh, they could lose weight? Focus on inner beauty and strength. Normalize the inner bully voice. We all have it. Sometimes we all have a voice that says we're not good enough. We need to tell our children this. Focus on keeping our bodies healthy, not just about what our body looks like, but what it does for you. Question reality of social media images. Hone your child or your young person's strengths and their sense of belonging in their community. You are so much more than the number on a clothes tag, measuring tape, or weighing scales. You are energy, you are love, laughter, kindness, joy. All that really matters has no reflection. This is from Hannah Lilly, who's an amazing advocate for a healthy body image from the Joy Project and a friend of mine. And she would talk about, she has body image workshops. She talks about smiling at yourself in the mirror each morning and saying, hi, these are lovely affirmations. I am beginning to accept and learning to love my body as it is now. I am so grateful for all my body does for me. I am worthy of joy. I believe in myself and my capabilities. My body deserves to feel pleasure. Gratitude list. Write 3 things each day about your body you are grateful for. Journal prompts or exercises. Write a thank you letter to your body and apologize to it if you haven't treated it kindly. Put on a song you love and dance to it like no one's watching, because no one will be. Journal prompts. Things like, the first time I felt unhappy with my body was, what do I think will change if I change my body? Can those things change anyway? Amazing. Love it. Tell your daughters, lovely poem by Nikita Gill, again given to me by Hannah Lilly. Tell your daughters how you love your body. Tell them how they must love theirs. Tell them to be proud of every bit of themselves, from their tiger stripes to the soft flesh of their thighs. Whether there is little of them or a lot, whether freckles cover their face or not, whether their curves are plentiful or slim, whether their hair is thick, curly, straight, long or short. Tell them how they inherited their ancestors' souls in their smiles, that their eyes carry countries, that breathed life into history, that the swing of their hips does not determine their destiny. Tell them never to listen when bodies are critiqued. Tell them every woman's body is beautiful because every woman's soul is unique. I absolutely love that. So again, I'm just going to go through this very briefly before I finish, because I am conscious of time, that Body Wise has this hashtag More Than a Selfie program that talks about body image and media literacy. Please contact them if you want to find out more about that. And they have young people who share their advice about how to feel better about your body image without changing how you look. If you're not, this is a young person, Sarah, age 18. If you're not feeling good about how you look, focus on that and try to change. And focusing on that and trying to change myself just makes me feel worse. But thinking of something else and doing what I love doing, playing music, really helped. I think instead of going along with what your friends are doing, do what you really want to do. You enjoy it and feel proud of yourself and good about yourself, and then feel better about how you look too. Works for me. Eleanor, age 22, said, focus on the positive. We all have things that we don't like about how we look, but focusing on these perceived flaws can really hold us back. Think about what you like and try and focus on that instead. Megan, age 16, don't judge people by how they look. If we lighten up a little in the way we judge others, then maybe we will also lighten a little bit on ourselves. I love that. Jake, age 18, chasing the image of perfection is like chasing a rainbow. You can see it, but you're never going to get there. Rowan, age 17, remember, body image is only one part of who you are. The media makes it seem like body image is the most important thing, but if you think of real life and the people you love spending time and why you like spending time with them, I bet how they look doesn't even come into it. Isn't that true? We enjoy being around people for who they are, and that's what they like about us too. Really, that is true. And just to say about boys and body image, that is becoming more of an issue as well. So be mindful of that as a parent. And you know, there can be a lot of pressure on young men to develop muscles and to control their calories. And so just, you know, I did a podcast with Pat Kenny a few years ago on muscle dysmorphia. If you want to Google that can be of interest to you perhaps. And then all of us have times when we don't feel great. In this More Than a Selfie program, they look at, you know, no matter who you are, whether you're rich, famous, or in first year in school, if you're not feeling good, you start to think negatively, you focus on the negative, you compare yourself, you feel like you're not good enough. And then these are the things that can help you feel better. Stop blaming yourself for not feeling good. Blame just holds you back from doing something to cheer yourself up. And then they kind of talk about your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as clues for why you're not in good form. I won't go through those in detail. And then things to stay away from, things like, you know, that it might be a good idea to stay away from some people, certain situations, different types of social media, if you're not feeling good in yourself. And then Fiona Flynn has done an awful lot, and she is the lady, really kind lady, who shared some of this with me on body image and social media, and you can watch that on YouTube. And she gives tips for young people aged 16 to 22 to reduce the social media pressure in terms of being aware of how it makes us feel, the likes that we get, knowing when to step away, limiting time online, and making a choice. Again, you can watch a video. So, and then supports for tough times for young people. You have Bodywise, Belong To, for the LGBT community, Jigsaw, brilliant, Childline, Spunout.ie, The Samaritans, Reachout.com, Drug and Alcohol Helpline, Option, Positive Options, Crisis Pregnancy Services, Aware, and definitely visit bodywise.ie for more information and resources, and I'd like to thank them very much for helping me with this presentation as well. And then finally, what are our 3 pillars of good enough parenting? We need to trust our gut instinct as parents, and you know your child best and your young person best. So I really hope that none of what I've said has made you feel like, oh God, I'm doing this all wrong and I need to be doing. It's about figuring out, even if this talk has just even given you an idea of how do I feel about my own body? Where am I at with that? Well, that's good enough, do you know? Letting go of the fallacy of perfection. None of us are perfect. I'm constantly learning, and it's okay. getting to know yourself as a parent and prioritizing self-care. If there's one thing you take from this talk, is this idea of the value of working on yourself as a parent so that you can then make decisions about how you react to their emotions, to your children's emotions and your young people. And you're also more mindful maybe of the messaging that happens around body image and what to look out for in your young person. And I just want to thank you to Galway Library for inviting me to do this talk. I hope that it's been helpful to you. If you've any questions, you can contact me on my website. And, a lot of what I talk about is in my book, Love In, Love Out, A Compassionate Approach to Parenting Your Anxious Child. And I just want to say finally that you are good enough as a parent. You're doing a wonderful job. This is hard. All of this, it can be difficult. Please seek help for yourself and for your young person if you feel that you need to. I would really recommend that. And thank you so much for listening. Bye.